minutes, so I gotta cut this video short. It's gonna be real quick, seriously. No, really. I'm not gonna apologize, but I didn't get around yesterday to making any video on cast testing or any of that kind of stuff. I did get a little window I got out, and I did some testing, but no video footage of it. You just have to take my word of what I went out and did just to see if I could go out and do it, right? So we've got spools here, and I don't know if anybody's ever sat down and done what I'm getting ready to do here. I haven't seen anyway on a video yet. We've talked about it, and you can really just read the boxes and look on the pages on AliExpress, and you can know what the spools weigh and all this and that. But the only shallow spool that's missing out of the Dark Wolf Ultra or the Black Knight 2 variants are the actual spool from the Black Knight 2, because that reel is still locked up down at the lake. It didn't make it home in time. It's still locked away until spring, probably. I mean, I could make a special trip just to go get it, but we know that it weighed a little bit more than the, I believe it's the exact same line capacity. It weighed a little more than the Dark Wolf Ultra, just by hair, and it had the ceramic spool bearings. But I wanted to show you guys the differences, if there are any, and yes, there are some. And then I also want to talk about this spool. And this, I know, two different whole kind of deals, but we're talking about the Gekkabijin and its spool capacity. And then we're going to talk about the Dark Wolf Ultra, Black Knight 2 variants, which include the Acura, the Micro Monster, which actually includes two different shallow spools. Depending on what gear ratio you get, they'll come in different color, and they do weigh different, as you're getting ready to find out here. But I wanted to show you one of the reasons why, like, even if you try to, and you can to a certain point, you can take one of these deep spools, because these are real light, right? And I do not have one totally undone, or I would show you, they don't weigh much different than the shallow spools. The problem is when you get all the line on here. So I'll show you, let's get that out of the way real quick. So you go from a light spool, but by the time you fill it up to get it within range, and it's still not full, but it's pretty close. But by the time you take a shallow spool and get it up there to where you could cast like BFS type stuff, you're talking a lot more weight on the spool mass, right? So here's that's out of the Acura, and there's the BFS shallow spool. So what I also want to clarify here real quick, if some of you don't know, you don't really even take into account the braking system. They've been designed a little bit, but when you hear the Daiwa SV, right? SV system, the MGL, like, oh, it's this high-tech stuff. All they've really done is they've gone a little out of the way to lighten the spool somewhat, but they could still go way lighter. But all they've done to really create that SV or the MGL is they've taken away some of that to where you can't put all that huge amount of line, and which will help you in overall casting of that. Like, in only way you would need it, and really, if you're a guy that uses braid, that's why they got the PE versions of a lot of this stuff Daiwa does, and they're coming out with the shallow edition. The Shimano's got a couple now out, and also on the SV stuff, right? If you've been paying attention, that's basically so you can go even shallower and get a lot of braid on there, that kind of stuff. So they use fancy word on some of that higher end stuff, and it's really basically, and also if you use braid, you can stay lighter than if you go, fluorocarbon is your heaviest. That's why it sinks also. It's most dense. So if you spool up regular, even one of these that are real light to start with, if you spool that all the way up with fluorocarbon, you're going to have a heavy spool, which is fine if you're throwing regular bait casting, size bait, stuff like that. But if you're wanting to do BFS, you do need a shallow spool. And what I wanted to cover here also, you don't have to put what they say it will hold. If you know you're going to little creeks and streams and nothing's going to be running you way out, or if you're on a very small lake or pond, or if you're in a boat and you can chase the fish down, You can catch, trust me, I've done it before. You can catch a very big fish in a little boat with the trolling motor. You can follow that sucker around, and I had a huge carp was running me, and we just followed him around till he tuckered out and then caught him, right? Now, if you're in big water, it's a little bit different story. But most of these, even a couple of these BFS spools, they would hold so much braid that you don't even need to fill them up if you don't want to. I tend to on these. I recommend it if you guys are going real light. Like if you're a guy that's going to go to that, 4 or 6 pound, like what this stuff is, I think, are supposed to be. And somebody commented on this. Pure Lure, they want me to try it out. I got it free a while back. I've never even spooled it up. I think I'm going to take advantage of that now onto this spool. So we're getting ready to do a cast test, but that will be in another video. Today, I'm just going to weigh each of these spools, tell you what they come out of. We'll look at the different depths. But let's get what testing I did manage to do yesterday. I got this spool out, and I talked about it in another video. You see how that's got that extra lip right there? So it's kind of real deep, but then I thought, well, why can't I not go to the edge of that, but why can't I just go even higher than what that says and let some spill over and then fish it that way? Like, won't it work that way? Well, the answer is yes. I put a 10 pound, and actually, here's another deep spool. If you guys can tell how much it didn't fill it up. It's a little past halfway of one of the deep spools, but I had that much line on this spool, and it basically came up and it started to hump up a little bit. Then it starts shooting over the edges, and I didn't want to take a chance of then it's hindering me on the initial cast, right? But I went out and I was casting a heavier bait. Well, I may have it here, just because it was glow in the dark. That's like 3.5 grams, almost 4 grams. But I was flinging that thing, no problem, getting distance and then reeling it back in without it. It wasn't hitting anywhere on the edges or any issues. So I would dare say that most of you guys, because I've watched a lot of people in pictures and whatever, they tend to let it still have a little hump, or not a hump, but a little bow in the middle. But I think... Now, I also watched Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he says that Daiwa recommends this, I think, size and a certain amount. And that's for if you're truly the lightest of BFS baits. And that's what you'd want to do. But if you're like me and you're like, well, this thing, can it be an all-around reel with that spool? And I answered my question yesterday. Yes, it can. If you're running... Like I said, a 10-pound braid, that'll handle all kinds of stuff. I can go to a 4, 6, 8, 10-pound leader and cover whatever kind of fishing I want to do. Because if you guys remember all my other previous testing, 10-pound, the distance on, like with the 1 gram trout magnet, yeah, you want to go with the lightest line possible. But and maybe even this bait right here that weighs like 1.7 grams. If you're fishing that and smaller, then you'll want to stick to the true ultralight trout type BFS stuff. But if you're bass fishing with BFS gear, kind of like we tend to do around here, all these spools will hold just enough 10-pound line that you'll feel confident out there fishing, and maybe you're using something like this or something like this, but you might hook into a 2, 4, 5-pound bass. You can kind of... Even around cover and stuff, you won't have to worry about, breaking. You can't really horse them, but you can hang on, let them wear down, and get them in kind of stuff. So anyway, I thought I'd let you guys know to stick around. I'm going to do the test I'm going to do when I finally get around to doing it, is I'm going to take and put as much line as this I feel comfortably will hold, or I might do that 50 meters, what Daiwa recommends. We'll put on this. We'll get out and test the Geico Pigeon against these other spools. So to be fair to these other spools, they only need that much line also. So I'll just take the line directly off there. You guys see me do it before. I'll cast out, take the line actually off that reel, leave it through the rod guides, put the other reel on. So we'll be dealing with the same line and everything, and just compare all these spools, because I don't know if anybody's done that in actual test casting other than I kind of put up the dynamic versus the non-dynamic dark wolf ultra in other videos. Then I had the dynamic Dark Wolf Ultra versus a Black Knight 2, if you guys have seen that. And then I think I even took this spool with ceramic bearings and did a video on that in distance. But I don't think we've went out and actually put all these up head to head. So what we're going to do now is we're going to weigh them up just so you'll know what we're dealing with. And before we do that, I know I got to make this quick. The best spool that I own anyway, I'm not saying there's not better, there's probably definitely better out there now, but as far as what I own, if you're purely talking about overhead cast for distance on a 1 gram trout magnet or pretty much any little bitty bait, that's still a spool to beat. And that's the chameleon spool for the Zillion. The only reason I don't call it the winner overall, because you can't go out and fish it that way. Where you can set it and every cast will not backlash overhead. As soon as you do sidearm or try to do like a lighter, you can still do overhead pretty light, but it's weird how this thing, how this spool works. So I kind of left it out there, and it's kind of just it only holds enough line. It's not really big on holding a lot of line. So I'm hoping this spool will beat it and be better than what I thought it would be. So I may throw this in the mix also just to see where it stacks up now against these other ones, since it is kind of like the one to beat, honestly, for pure distance. But without further ado, let's start weighing these. Now you guys know this one is not the lightest. 8.63 grams. That's the Geico Pigeon. Then the Dark Wolf Ultra. So we don't have any other brake stuff in there, but it is the fixed brake. And they all have, every one of these still has a bearing on it. That actually has a heavier bearing housing. So 6.21 for the Dark Wolf Ultra. Let's go with the Acura. That does have the brake plate on it. 6.5, just a little bit. 6.2, 6.21, and 6.25, or 6.59. So not a half a gram difference. And then I believe this is lighter than this one. This is heavy. So they go in order. So you got, we'll leave this one out. The Dark Wolf Ultra, the Acura. This is, if you get the 7-to-1, the pink Micro Monster. So it's heavier than the Acura, but just by a little bit. 6.8, what was that, 6.5, almost 6.6. So it is heavier, quite a bit heavier actually than the Dark Wolf Ultra. But then if you get the 8-to-1 Micro Monster, for whatever reason, it is 7 even. And I still don't know why. It's got to be... And then I'm going to try to show you how you can tell if one spool so I think, like, if you fill them all the way up, I think this is a shallower spool. Hang on, scan likely. So if you did fill them all the way up, they would probably balance out, or this may even be lighter. But that is the only difference in how they're made. And then this one, I think these two are the exact same depth spool. They're a little deeper than the other one. See, I'm holding those in, and you can kind of see how this one isn't straight away from it. And I put the mic thing on. They're just a little bit, that's the shallowest of those two, but it's also the heaviest. And I think it is the same depth as the Dark Wolf Ultra. Now, if you don't know how you can order these, talk about that real quick before we wrap this video up. So be looking forward to the test. That's the order and what they weigh. But these two on the ends are the shallowest. These have the Acura and the Micro Monster in 7-to-1 are the have the same line capacity. But for our test, we're going to put the same amount of line on all of them. But in theory, if you filled these all the way up, these two would be just a touch heavier than these two, because they will hold just a little more line. But if you want something that holds just a touch more line, you'd want to go with the pink Micro Monster or the Acura. Now, the plus and the downside, I call it all plus side. The Acura, you can order either gear ratio, and it's going to come with that spool and a deep spool. 7-to-1 or 8-to-1. The Micro Monster, I still don't know why. If you get an 8-to-1, it's a purple reel with that spool. If you get the 7-to-1, it's a dual spool with that and the deep spool. I don't know why they don't. I kind of like the fact, not that I really care for the pink, but I like the fact that they offer a couple colors there. But why they don't offer, the 8-to-1 in a purple and the shallow and the deep spool, and why they've changed why you're basically getting two different spools. I still don't know that for sure. So if you want to cover all your bases with the Micro Monster, you got to order a few reels. The Acura, you just figure out what gear ratio you want, order it, and then you've got all they have to offer spool wise. And I still have not tried this, and I don't think I'm going to. Just by looking at these, I would almost swear that is probably, and this is probably why it weighs a little different and why they offer it, that is probably the spool that would fit right into the Black Knight 2. It just has this thing glued on it. If I had to assume, it's the same depth. I think you could pop that off and run that in any of the fixed or non-fixed FTB style brake system. These others, and I'm not going to try it. I'd almost think you could, if you turn the brakes all the way down, you might be able to slide one in, but I think they're probably too deep. If you wanted to try that, I don't think they'd work. But I think the 8-to-1, the purple Micro Monster one, is probably the same thing that the Black Knight 2 has. It looks just like what I remember it looking like. Except I think they cut out the extra holes here. What's funny is this one is cut out to make it look like you'd swear it has the FTB style, but it doesn't. Did I show you what this thing weighed? Yeah, I think I should briefly. This thing with enough line to cast, I can't remember exactly how many feet. I want to say that is only 6-pound braid. I can't remember. But 8.4 with the line ready to go. It's actually got a 6-foot leader on it too. And not necessarily with the spool still in the reel, but if you take your spool out and you want to keep that line on it, those little bands that I get that I told you guys about, that are for the girls' hair or whatever, tie your little hair tie things, those work good to just slap on top and, while you're storing stuff around. So anyway, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm going to get out there and put these to the test with, I won't be on the water, we'll be out in a field or somewhere, but I'll get an idea of what I think of this line, initial thoughts, I guess. I can already tell you I don't like it because of the color. It's too bright. If you're going to, I kind of like the camo blue for seeing, for me anyway, as it disappears. The camo would probably be my least favorite. The purple is my least favorite. That purple braid, it doesn't show up enough for me anyway to use it. But I've got it on a couple of those. I'm going to be letting girls fish it anyway. They don't ever pay attention to the line. They just, when the pole's about ready to get yanked out of their hand, they reel it in. The purple rods have them hooked. It's amazing. I don't know what it is. Alright guys, 20-minute video. Nice, short, sweet. If you have any other questions on these reels, they can be found on AliExpress. Actually, all these reels can. AliExpress now has most all the Daiwa stuff you'd want, or whatever. I don't know what it would cost to get the Silver Creek right now off Digitaka, but I clicked on a Silver Creek and they're having a rebate thing, you know, every $40 you get $5 off, and it's like $3.15, and for $2.97 you can get a Silver Creek from AliExpress. Does that sound cheap? I don't even know. But I don't plan on getting another one. If at some point in time Charles don't like the one he's got and want to trade or something, I may trade back for that one, but I won't buy another one. Because I do think I like the Gekkabijin over that one, because you can get more line. That if you guys remember right, that Silver Creek and Airstream Custom, they are real limited to how much line you can get on. This thing's limited unless you go a little beyond what they recommend. But also seeing they do have I don't think it's Roro. Roro has a spool, but on AliExpress there's a spool you can get that would work also. So stay tuned. I've got the other Salamandura. Hopefully will be here this week. May not make it, but was in customs 4 days ago, wherever that's going to put it now. I'm hoping to get it before Christmas or my birthday, but it's coming. And then that other Metalure reel that Jay swears up and down by. I better hope I like this thing, because I looked at it and it weighs 199 grams, which makes it sound like a tank. I want to say the Zillions weigh 175, something like that. So it's heavier than a Zillion, but I don't know how to palm or how compact it is. I just one of those reels I have to get it in my hand and cast it. And if you guys all know, by the Aldebaran 22, just because it casts real great doesn't mean I'm going to like that reel. It's got to cast great, palm good, or great, and cast good, or whatever. You guys know the deal. So if you haven't seen those as I get out of here, if you're new to watching any videos, there's the Acura and a spool for the Acura. And yes, all the stuff interchanges out of those reels. So if you wanted an Acura and you wanted a pink spool, well, you're going to have to buy a Micro Monster in the 7-to-1. But it'll fit, no problem. And then you got the Micro Monsters in the 2 different color variations. That is a dark purple and what could either be kind of seems purpley, but I think it's supposed to be pink. It's a very light purple or pink, and then the dark purple. And it only comes in 8-to-1 or 7-to-1. Now these both have deep spools out of the ones that are 7-to-1. If you guys know that fiasco that happened with the ZB fishing store that you do not want to buy from. Had to get that plug in. Don't buy from him. LT Fishing Store, or just, you know, a store that has good ratings if you see something you want from there. Alright guys, gotta go. Got a lot of stuff to do. Gotta get to the gym. Gotta get Noah first, and then go to the gym. I'm not sure when the next day. We're gonna get these things rip-roaring and ready to go. So stay tuned probably before Christmas, before New Year's for sure. I'm going to, probably in between, I'll probably wait till after Christmas. So next week, after Christmas, be looking forward to my favorite rod, reel, in BFS, in regular, in my favorite spool, maybe over a reel, just on what I consider performance. And then my favorite maybe rod and reel combos, stuff like that, that I think are the best to date. Maybe they didn't come out this year, maybe they've been out 5 years, but can't be beat. Nothing's beat them yet, in my opinion. Maybe some I don't even own at the moment, but I've had and I've tried, and I feel confident in recommending them. Right? Alright guys, stay tuned. Thanks for watching. Get out, go bass and bonsai, and whatever you do, have fun doing it.